Hi guys, it's Lynn here. Hope you're having an amazing day. Now today guys, in this video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about aloe plants and how you can care for them and their growing requirements. And I'll try and keep the video as quick as possible because I have a habit of going on in a bit of detail. Now, I've also made a blog on my website, desertplantsofavallon.com, on how to care for aloe plants. So do also go and check that blog and do go and read it. The links to my the blog on my website will be down below of this video in the description on the video down below. Just click on the link, and there's also lots and lots of links to other sort of tips on how to care for aloe on there as well, including growing from seed and how to prune them and everything else. So do check that blog out, and goes into a lot more detail there with all the video links as well. Anyway guys, what are aloe plants? Well, aloe plants are succulent plants that belong to the plant family Asphodelaceae, Liliaceae and Xanthomormaceae. And they're commonly now sort of put into the Liliaceae family. But obviously they're a succulent plant, which means they can store water. And aloes come from Africa, India and the Indian Ocean Islands. Obviously they're available in a lot of garden centres and garden shops, but that's where they are in their natural habitats. And there's about probably over 500 different species of aloe plants, with obviously the most common one being the aloe vera, which is this one here. And that is the one that you most commonly seen in a lot of the garden centres, and often used for sort of medicines as well, and for skincare and hair care products, and also to drink it as well. The gel and the juice is very commonly seen for sale for health reasons and in health shops. Now, aloe plants, obviously, they're succulent plants, and they form thick, fleshy leaves that form in a bit of a rosette shape, like this, as you can see. That gives them the common sort of aloe look. And each succulent leaf is filled with a lovely that lovely little gel. And as I say, this is the more traditional aloe vera that has the gel inside it. And yep, as you think, how to get this as short as possible. Now I'm going to put this into different categories like the light, the temperature, fertilising and things like this. Now before I go any further, I want you to know that I'm sharing my experiences of growing aloe plants with the climate that I have. Now I live here in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, and the climate in Ireland and the UK is very damp. Even in the summertime, we don't get the sort of sunlight that other places would in other parts of the world, certainly sort of like in Arizona and places like that, and even Africa, where these plants are originally from, their natural habitats, would not have the damp conditions that we'd have here. So this is only sharing my experience, but it's hard to say one size fits all because it really depends on where you're living in the world. So hopefully I've sort of looked at the best way of making this video into a care video that's going to suit the majority of us plant growers, and the majority of us don't live in a very hot, dry climate. So hopefully you'll understand when I talk about this. Now, first of all, lighting. Now, aloe plants are often grouped alongside their related genera cousins, such as Gasteria and Haworthia. And I'll show you here, that's Gasteria, and another Gasteria here, and Haworthia as well. So to here, and they are very similar. They're all sort of in the same type of group, the Liliaceae family. But they do need a lot more light than Gasteria, Sansevieria and Haworthia do. And they can be grown in shade, and sometimes I'll have to have these under the table in the summer when it's too sunny, or I have had to do that in the past. But they do prefer, especially in the winter times, to have a lot more of a sunnier position than Gasteria and Haworthia do. If you grow them in the shade, they're not necessarily going to die, but they're more likely to thrive and certainly flower if you can give them some sunshine. Now, they do prefer a bright, strong light, such as a south or west facing window. But I'd still avoid a very strong sunshine, because aloes can go a little bit of a tinted red colour, and also a little bit yellow if they get too much sun. So if you find that's happening, then give it a little bit more shade. So obviously a south or west facing window that receives some sunshine, or a sunny position outside that's protected from very strong sunshine and winds. Now some of the tougher varieties can tolerate all day sun. So obviously probably rather than all day sun, just part sun. But obviously a lot more sun than the common Gasteria or the Haworthia can take. I personally keep all mine together in the polytunnel. They receive in the winter we can never have enough sun. You can see the sun's just hitting the top there, but in the summer this sort of gets afternoon sun, and which is perfect for them. They seem to really like it, and obviously I put some of them outside in the summer as well into the yard, but it seems to suit them there. So obviously the most important is sunny position, and just go by your own eyesight. If the plants start to go a little bit yellowy or have a pink, as I just showed you there, it's actually going a bit pink tinted there because this actually gets a lot of sun in this particular corner. Bear in mind this is winter, which is why it's got the little pink tinge on there too. But no harm is going to hurt if it happens, but it's just a sign they're getting a little bit too much sun. Now, temperature. Now, aloes can take very high temperatures in summer, as long as plenty of ventilation can be given. Now, if you're growing these plants behind glass, such as a window or greenhouse, it's important that plenty of fresh air can be provided, especially on the very warm days, because these plants can literally cook if you have them in temperatures of 100 degrees or more, especially on a hot sunny day. And believe it or not, guys, here in the polytunnel, even in Ireland, if it's sunny in the summer, it can actually reach, there's our little temperature there, 54, which is good because it's winter at the moment. It can reach over 100 degrees, so always make sure you give them plenty of ventilation. And as I say, they can take heat, hot, very high temperatures, as long as ventilation is given. If you've got them behind in a window and it's just scorching heat, they will literally cook. As I say, the gel will start to cook and you'd actually smell them cooking. So no, plenty of ventilation, guys. Now in winter, aloe plants are pretty hardy against cold temperatures if they're kept dry during the winter. As I say, this is our polytunnel here. This is all our aloe collection, but the majority of aloes all in here, some underneath there. And as you can see, I'm just going to show you, I keep these completely bone dry. But the reason why I keep these dry all through the winter time, even though they're coming into flower, is because they're in the polytunnel. We keep this polytunnel at a minimum of 5 degrees Celsius, which is around 41 degrees Fahrenheit, which personally myself, I would say is the bare minimum to keep aloe plants at. They can take much lower than this. They can even take, apparently, up to freezing if they're kept dry and the air humidity is dry, but personally I would not recommend that. I would not want to lose my plants. Minimum of 5 degrees Celsius, which is 41 degrees Fahrenheit, if you're growing these in a northern climate. Obviously, if you're in a warmer climate, you don't have to worry. Now, personally, I'd recommend normally, if you're growing aloes, ideally the ideal temperature to actually overwinter these, I personally would say, if you have a choice, would be around 8 Celsius, which is probably around 48 degrees Fahrenheit. And then these plants do actually like a little bit of water during the winter by choice. And I'll tell you why I don't water mine. And as I say, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to the care, which is what I explained a little bit in the beginning, because ideally, the ideal winter temperature will be about 8 Celsius, 48 degrees Fahrenheit. And ideally, they would like to be given a small amount, just probably about once a month, a little bit of water, just to stop aloes from shriveling. And because aloes do still like to grow during the winter, slowly, they certainly like to flower, as in this here. I'm going to talk about the flowering in a minute, is because they do shrivel up if they're not given water. Now, because I'm overwintering mine in a much cooler temperature at 5C, which is 41 degrees Fahrenheit, the actual bare minimum that I would keep these plants at. I like to, and the air humidity is so high, it's very humid and damp here in Ireland, that I prefer to keep them dry. And as I say, I've never lost a plant from keeping them dry. I would only give a tiny bit of water. Like this is actually showing signs. I've been a little bit shriveled there at the sides. It's okay for now, but if it starts shriveling up a little bit more, I'll give it a tiny bit of water, and that's the only time I would. But as I say, it really just depends on your temperature when it comes to watering. But no harm is going to hurt if you don't water them during the winter. If you have a choice, as I say, a small amount of water, depending on the minimum temperature you're going to give them. Now, as I say, in winter it's important the temperature never drops below 5C, 41 degrees Fahrenheit. And as I say, I would personally recommend no lower than 8C. Now watering. Now in spring and summer, aloe plants like to be given a good water, preferably with clean rainwater if it's available. And the soil must be allowed to fully dry out before watering again. Like even in the height of summer when it's very warm, I always let the soil dry out before I water again, because succulent plants, especially aloes, are very prone to rotting, especially if you water them in the winter and it's cool and damp conditions. But even in the summer, they do like to dry out in between watering, guys. Sorry about the motorbike outside, guys. Just have to switch the camera off them because it's a bit of a noisy motorbike. Right, now, the soil, the correct type of soil to use for aloe plants. Now, it's important that you use a well-draining soil mix when potting up aloe plants. And personally, I like to make my own soil mix for cacti and succulents. And I put a link up above to a video I have made on how to make your own cactus and succulent plant soil. This is the recipe I like to use, but you can use any well-draining soil mix. That is the most important thing, that it's well draining. Now, I personally use 1 part horticultural sharp sand with 1 part grit or perlite, and also then I will also sand, and then I'll use a John Innes loam based soil, but you can use any loam based soil. John Innes is a soil here that's popular sort of in Ireland and the UK, but it's not available, I don't think, in many other parts of the world. But basically it's just a loam based soil with added sand rather than peat, because I just personally prefer to use more loam and sand and grit or perlite when I make it. As I say, watch that video if you want to know how to make your own cactus and succulent mix. But any good well draining cactus and succulent commercial soil that's a good quality can work with these plants. Now, I will also put a link down below. I'll mention it actually when I talk about repotting. I was going to go on to repotting. Now, it's best to repot aloe plants in the spring and summer when these plants are actively growing. Now, aloes have fleshy, water storing root systems, and because of their fleshy root systems, it's best to cut away any dead and decaying roots when you repot your aloes. Now, I have made a video when I've repotted, it wasn't my aloe, it was actually my gasteria plant, which I'll just show you. Yep, it's actually this one here, and they're very similar. As I say, gasteria, Haworthia, Sansevieria are similar all in that part family, and their roots are similar when you repot them. They have very fleshy roots, and it's very common for aloes, gasterias, Haworthias to actually, the roots die back and go sort of brown and mushy. And what I do is I cut the roots away. If I have that happen when I repot my aloes, I cut the roots away, and then I'll leave the aloe unpotted overnight so any damaged cut away roots can heal, and then I put it up again, pot it up in dry cactus and succulent soil the following day, and then I won't water then for about a week to allow the roots to fully heal before I water again. But as I say, I'm going to put a link up above now to a video I've made on how I repot aloe, gasteria and Haworthia, and I'll show you the method, the reasons why I leave the roots unpotted, the plant unpotted for overnight while I cut away the dead roots. You may find when you repot your aloe, the roots are perfect and just pot it straight on. Always best to keep the soil dry and don't water for a week or two to let the plant establish into its new pot. But as I explain more in that repotting video, so do check that out. But as I say, always best spring and summer to repot in a cactus and succulent soil, as I mentioned above. Now, when it comes to fertilizer, now, I fertilise all my aloes about once a month from spring until sort of late fall, autumn. And I like to use 2 different types. I use a cactus and succulent fertiliser by Chempac. Now, I've had it absolutely years, so I don't know even if it's still available now. And I also like to use a one called by Crop, and it's an organic tomato feed fertiliser. And I know, guys, you might think, what the hell am I using tomato fertiliser for on my aloe plants? Well, the reason being is I use it on all of my succulents and cacti as well, and I find that it does really, really well for promoting flowering. And I haven't had any tomatoes yet. It actually helps to, it's high in potassium and helps to produce flowering. And so I alternate between a normal cactus and succulent fertiliser and also a tomato fertiliser. And as I say, it's really optional how often you fertilise, but this is only how I fertilise, and I fertilise once a month from spring until late fall. And so yeah, I stopped fertilising then from sort of late fall until the spring, when the cooler temperatures and short days come and their growth the growth slows down, that's when I stop. And then from sort of springtime again, that's when I'll start to go back into fertilising. Now, just trying to think if I've covered everything else. Oh yeah, flowering. How could I not mention flowering? Now, as I say, there's lovely winter flowers there on my Aloe variegata. And I have got a few more buds. There's another one with a bud in there too. I say aloes are often winter the winter flowerers. Now, I have had my aloes flower for me spring, summer, fall and winter. So, as I say, one size doesn't fit all with these plants. They have a mind of their own. But they usually flower from late winter to early spring. But as I say, I've had my aloe plants in this polytunnel flowering spring and summer and winter. But then I do have crazy cacti and succulent plants, as a lot of you will know. Now, because aloes are from South Africa, then because I live in the northern hemisphere in Northern Ireland, these will normally flower in late winter because they're sort of, as I say, South Africa now will be having the spring and summertime, so you can understand why they still want to flower during the winter. And the flowers are usually pretty gorgeous, and I'm happy to actually show you Aloe variegata at the moment in beautiful flower. And I'll give you a little bit of a tour of all my aloes that I've got here in the collection, because the majority of them are out here in the polytunnel, and they're all on this side of the table. Now, so just trying to think out. Oh yeah, propagation. Nearly done, guys. I'm trying to keep this video as short as possible. Now, propagation, there's two different ways to propagate aloe plants. And the most common one is their little plantlets. And this is a good example here. This is Hans's big aloe vera he's had for many, many years. Aren't these blooms? No, they're not aloe blooms. This is one of my epiphyllums coming into bud here, which is lovely to see. Totally different to aloe, I know. But yeah, when it comes to propagation here, as you can see, lots of little plantlets growing all around the base. And over time, they'll produce little plantlets. And all you have to do, when you repot them, is just take the plant out of the pot, gently pull away the little plantlet. Usually, nearly all the time, they have little roots, and then pot them up into cactus and succulent soil, and then you can give them away to friends and family, or you can have more aloes. And as I can show you here, it really does multiple pup over many, many times. And not all, I've had some aloes I've had for many years. I've never sent out pups, which is really strange. But I've had other ones that just pup like crazy. And this one here has been wonderful for sending out all the little pups. Aloe vera is particularly common for sending out the little pups. And as I say, very easy to detach. Best time to do this would be when you are repotting, which again would be the best time, would be spring and summer, when the aloes are actively growing. I wouldn't recommend transplanting the little plantlets during the dead of winter anyway. The other method is by seed, and I'm very happy to say I've very successfully grown aloe plants from seed. And here, this big, well, there's 2 or 3 in here actually. These are actually aloes that I grew myself from seed, and these as well, Aloe arborescens. And aloe arborescens, yep, and aloe, just don't remember the name of the other one now. This is all what I grew from seed. These 2 different types. I've got the label, should remember, there's so many aloe elginica here, all these different aloes in the bowl, and this Aloe arborescens. And this was actually seed that my wonderful friend Rachel from Gardening at Derwentshire gifted me, and I'm very happy to say, so thank you, Rachel. Very happy, very, very successful. In fact, they're huge, and we're potting them on this year. And if you want to know how to grow aloe from seed, again, links up above to a video on how you can grow these amazing plants from seed. And if you want to know how to get aloe seed, it can be a bit difficult to actually get your own plants to produce seed. Now, sometimes they will just produce seed pods, and I've had a few produce seed pods myself. And you're very lucky then. Most of them are not self-pollinating. They have to be cross-pollinated with another flowering aloe, so it can be a bit difficult to get seed. Some can be self-pollinating, but the majority of them aren't. So if you've only got 1 or 2 aloes, you're probably better off buying some seed from a reputable seller. As I say, I was lucky to be gifted seed from Rachel, so thank you, Rachel. And links up above to that video on how to grow aloe from seed. No, I think we've covered everything except for pests. Yeah, pests. Now, I'd say the succulent plants and aloes particularly, the biggest pest when it comes to succulent plants is the mealybug. And they're not prone to many pests compared to other type of house plants. Mealybug, spider mite are the two biggest nightmares for aloe plant lovers. And as I say, I've done many videos on how to treat pests on succulent plants, and I use two of my main methods. One will be neem oil, which I water into the soil and also spray the plants with. This is a good prevention as long as you keep it regular, and in the summer I'll probably do it probably once or twice every couple of months, and it keeps them at bay. But if you've already got an infestation of mealybug, I would recommend probably using rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, to dab on and remove the pests that way. That would be the best way of doing it, I found. But as I say, prevention is always better. So neem oil does work, but it just takes a bit longer. And I'll put a link up above to a video now on how to prevent and treat mealybug and other pests, including green flies and other type of pests, by using neem oil there. And as I say, aloes don't really seem to be prone to things like green fly and that, probably because they are very thick, leathery type of leaves. They don't really have any other pests like that. But obviously the procedure will be the same for treating all type of pests with the neem oil and the rubbing alcohol as well. So just trying to think of everything else. Yeah, pruning. Now, do you have to prune aloes? Now, the only disadvantage with aloes, well, it could be a good thing, but when you're short on space, this is my polytunnel, as you can see, it is quite bit more space on this side, but aloes do grow very, very large. There's times when you do sort of need to keep them back. Now, I wouldn't recommend pruning them when they're in healthy, normal growth like that. But when the dead leaves come away at the bottom, very normal for aloes. I'll just show you here, the leaves die back as it grows up. And I just prune them off, just cut them back, prune them off. And I put links up above to a video now on how to remove the dead leaves on aloe plants. And that just shows you how I remove the dead leaves on my aloe plants. And that should help you out. But as I say, I wouldn't really recommend pruning the healthy growth. And it's something I've never done. So it's something I can't talk about here because I've not pruned back healthy plants, only the dead leaves at the bottom of the aloes. And as I say, they can be kept sort of compact by removing plantlets and giving them away. So guys, I think that's pretty much it. I'm sorry it's so long. I try and keep it as short as possible. And I hope you enjoyed the video, found it useful if you're growing these amazing plants. And do check out the blog I've done on my website, desertplantsofAvalon.com, and the link to that actual blog will be down below, so do check it out, guys. So guys, thank you so much for watching. And I want to send you loads of love, heaps of happiness, and tons of plant power. As always, I'm across the Emerald Isle. And until the next video, bye.